Manchester United's pre-season tour in America comes to an end, and I'm not gonna lie, they didn't really finish it how I expected them to, based on the performances that we've seen in the previous two games. Definitely some moments that we can take away, positives, but there's obviously some issues that need to be addressed. Be sure to hit the like button, be sure to subscribe as well if you are new here. Now let's start with the first half, because if we're being honest, there was a bit of sloppy football from Manchester United, but I think everyone, just like myself, is most looking forward to seeing how Bryan Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha make an impact for Manchester United, and I think we saw it multiple different times in the first half, including what led to Amad winning that penalty. But before we actually talk about that, I'm going to speak about one thing that I noticed, and you will see it here multiple times throughout the game. Manchester United in defensive shape, sitting within a 4-4-2. Now, I always say that Ruben Amorim is able to adapt. On paper, it might say United have a back five or Man United are playing with a back three. But I think in the game, we can clearly identify different shapes and different styles or systems depending on the opponent. Now, Manchester United, I think, approached this game quite differently, especially in the first half, because they sat off the press. They weren't as aggressive with the press as they were in previous games during pre-season, and this just shows that Manchester United have alternating options in terms of how they can get into a defensive shape depending on who the opponent is. Now, a team like Everton, I think Manchester United were happy to sit off, and you see here and you see in this screenshot as well, two different screenshots throughout the first half, and if I kept taking screenshots I would have been taking so many, but you guys get my point. Manchester United, you can see very clearly sitting here with a 4-4-2. Now, it's interesting to me as well because Lenny Yuro is playing as that sweeper on the right hand side. He's playing as someone that's shifting into the spaces that Amad is departing from defensively. And obviously Diogo Dalot, quite naturally as a fullback, he's able to drop into the left side and play as a left back. And that was what I noticed. Another thing that I noticed in the first half was this screenshot here in particular. First couple of minutes of the game, but it wasn't just then. It was anytime Man United did get a goal kick, you would see that Matheus de Ligt would step out into the central midfield area and the two centre backs would cause that little split, and you see it right here. It will allow the goalkeeper to come out and progress, but also I think the most important thing is you have to have a central centre back that is able to play with back to the opponent and can receive the ball to feet. Matheus de Ligt in this particular situation was not able to, nor was Manuel Ugarte, and Altay Bayindir just went long. But if we talk about the goal that Manchester United scored, the penalty, and how Man United actually got to that instance, I'm so excited to see how Bryan Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha kind of not develop, but how they become integral for Manchester United. Because there's one thing that they've done already in the first half that I haven't seen any kind of attacking player at Manchester United do, which is drop into the pockets of space between the lines, pick up the ball, drive forward, or find the right path. You see here in this screenshot the exact moment where Amad wins a penalty. You see Amad actually starts the play and goes long or into the central area to Matheus Cunha. He takes a touch and gets the ball out his feet immediately. And that's what I like about Cunha and Mbeumo. Both of them know when to play the right pass. I know it's been a bit sloppy from Bryan Mbeumo in terms of poor passes, Bruno Fernandes as well, but this is pre-season. You need to get that out of your system. And you see Matheus Cunha just plays the pass to Bruno plays it to Mbeumo to Amad. Nice shift from, it's kind of like a Z shape, if you want to say, the way that Manchester United were able to do that. It went from the wing back to the central area to someone further out in the kind of attacking 10 area, back across, and then across to your wing back who started the whole motion. And that's why I always say that I'm interested to see Amad at right wing back with Bryan Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha because of elements of football like this. Now, there was another time as well when Man United were able to do something similar, and there was multiple different times that Matheus Cunha and Mbeumo were alternating. So in particular, one thing that I noticed is that Matheus Cunha would, if he's playing in the 9, so he would drop off the centre backs and come into that central midfield role to pick up the ball and try to drive with the ball, and you'd have Bryan Mbeumo kind of navigating across to the position that Matheus Cunha vacated. And you can see it here in this screenshot, for example, or this other screenshot here, little passages of play that I noticed in the first half. And that's why I say I think Bryan Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha will be very integral for the manager, just to play in different ways up against different opponents. I have to give a big shout out. Lenny Yuro, I don't think people realise how good of a player Manchester United have on their hands. Dare I say, he might be one of Manchester United's best wide centre-backs. I mean, when he's on the right side, when he's on the left side, he just looks comfortable. And today what we actually saw from him in this pre-season game is fancy footwork, comfortable footwork in positions where a centre-back shouldn't be able to be playing like that. But big shout out to him. But I have to speak about, I think, the biggest issues of what we saw, especially in the second half, which is Manchester United's dire need for a competent midfielder, a ball progressor, a ball carrier, someone who's good on the ball. Now, I say this all the time in my videos, in my streams. I am of the ilk of and I'm of the belief that if you are a midfielder, you should be good on the ball. I understand that football nowadays, it likes the idea of athleticism. It likes the idea of athleticism specifically in the midfield, but I don't think Man United should compromise the athleticism and also the how good a player can be on the ball. And I'm not singling any players out. It's just that what I've noticed for Manchester United is how dire the situation is in the middle of the pitch. I am also of the belief that if you're a midfielder, you should be good on the ball. You should be able to be good on the ball, whether it's progressing the ball, whether it's playing a good pass. Your only talents, and it shouldn't only just be running, barging, tackling, etc. You should be good on the ball. And Manchester United, I think, are in dire need of a ball progressor. I think Man United could actually do with a good ball progressor who could play as a box-to-box. Now, I think it will only go on especially when the season starts. I think that situation will be highlighted a lot more, because Manchester United are probably going to come up against midfields where it's a 3v2. Man United played 2 in the midfield. Now, I know today on paper how Manchester United played in comparison to how the formation looked on paper wasn't consistent throughout the game. There was definitely changes, and I highlighted that in the first part of this video. But that is the biggest standout for me from this preseason. Is I'm actually curious to know if a lot of fans would rather Manchester United sign and pay a big hefty fee for a midfielder that answers those questions rather than signing signing a striker instead. Of course, we've been linked to Benjamin Sesko, but you got the likes of Baleba available, Wharton, but also I think another midfielder that goes under the radar in the Premier League is also Elliot Anderson. Manchester United also have the option to go out and buy from Europe, where there's other midfielders that are available. But the thing that I noticed as well is because of that midfield and the lack of ball progression and the lack of ball retention, there's a lot of sloppiness in the midfield for Manchester United, and that kind of trickles in to other parts of the game, whether it's the wide channels, whether, I feel like when you're Manchester United's current midfield, the ball progression lacks. So, you rely quite heavily on your wing backs, and you rely quite heavily maybe on your wide-sided centre-backs. And that's where people like Lenny, Yuro come into play, people like Ahmad come into play. And I think that's why we will probably see Ahmad a lot more in the wide channels because of that specific reason if Man United don't address that particular point. Now, with saying all of that, I'm happy with, the way that Lenny Yuro is playing, and also I'm very excited to see how Mbeumo and Cunha, continue to build on their career at Manchester United. It's still early stages. It's only pre-season. Pre-season just gives us an inkling or an idea of what the players are going to be like. But really, the real work starts when the actual football season starts, and it's not that far away. It's less than 2 weeks away, where Manchester United welcome Arsenal to Old Trafford for the first game of the season. Now, a lot of sloppiness in the game today. I don't know whether it was down to more the way that Everton were playing or the way that Man United were approaching the game, but that's something that I don't think Man United can afford to have next season. Now, there's not long left in the window, less than a month, and Manchester United need a striker, they need a midfielder, they need a goalkeeper. I think today also showed us how much we need a goalkeeper, but I also think we shouldn't overlook some situations of sloppiness in football, especially the ones that can lead to Manchester United conceding, which happened twice today. 2 different times, sloppiness in our third or the middle of the third led to Manchester United conceding a goal, and maybe they can get the errors out of them now. But listen, when the football season starts, it's a completely different story. Let me know your thoughts down below, guys. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe as well if you're new here.